You watch your manager's hand dip into the tip jar through the security camera footage you'd been secretly recording for 3 weeks. And finally, you have him. The grainy timestamp reads 11:47 p.m., 30 minutes after closing, and Derek is alone in the shop pocketing bills. Your hands shake as you save the file because you know exactly what comes next. 6 months ago, you'd taken the barista job at Grindhouse Coffee because the tips were supposedly amazing. The previous staff raved about making an extra $200 weekly in cash. But from your very first week, the jar never seemed to match what you remembered customers putting in. You tried to convince yourself you were imagining it. Maybe customers weren't as generous as you thought, or maybe the morning shift was just better than evenings. But then Jenna, your coworker, pulled you aside during a break and whispered that something felt off. She'd been tracking it mentally for 2 months. On her best Saturday shift, she'd personally watched customers drop in at least $300. But when Derek counted out the jar at closing, he claimed only $97. The math didn't add up, and it was always Derek doing the final count. Derek was the assistant manager, a guy who'd been with the company for 8 years and seemed trustworthy. He had stories about his kids, his mortgage, his wife's medical bills. Everyone felt sorry for him, and that's probably why he thought he'd never get caught. You started paying closer attention, and the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every closing shift Derek worked, the tip total was suspiciously low. Every shift he had off, the tips were exactly what you'd expect from a busy coffee shop. But here's what made you truly furious. The tip jar wasn't just your money. It was split between you, Jenna, and 3 other baristas who worked doubles on their feet, dealt with rude customers, and actually needed that cash. Some of them were students barely making rent. You brought your concerns to the general manager, Rebecca, with your documented numbers. She looked uncomfortable, said she'd look into it, then did absolutely nothing. 2 weeks later, Derek was still working closing shifts, still counting tips, still stealing. That's when you realized you needed proof that couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug. You spent $200 of your own money on a tiny wireless security camera disguised as a USB charger. You mounted it on the back counter where it had a perfect view of the register and tip jar. For 3 weeks, you recorded every closing shift. Most nights showed nothing interesting, just normal cleanup routines. But on the nights Derek worked, the camera captured everything. His routine was bold and stupid. He'd wait until everyone left, then casually pocket half the bills before writing down the official count. You compiled the footage into a 12-minute highlight reel. Derek taking 20s, Derek taking 10s, Derek literally looking directly at your hidden camera once while pocketing a handful of 5s, completely oblivious. You estimated he'd stolen at least $4,000 over the past 6 months alone. Now came the beautiful part, the moment you'd been planning. You didn't go back to Rebecca, you didn't go to corporate, you went straight to the company's social media accounts and posted the video with a detailed explanation, tagging the CEO and every local news outlet you could find. The video went viral in 48 hours, 500,000 views, thousands of shares, local news picking up the story. The comments section filled with current and former employees, sharing their own stories about tip theft. And suddenly, this wasn't just about your coffee shop anymore. Derek was fired within 24 hours of your post. But it got better. The company launched an internal investigation and discovered he'd been doing this at 2 previous locations before transferring to yours. They had to reimburse thousands of dollars to former employees. Rebecca, the general manager who'd ignored your complaint, was demoted for failing to investigate. The district manager personally apologized to you and the entire staff. They implemented new policies requiring 2 people to count tips together and installed official security cameras in all locations. The company cut you a check for your estimated losses, plus offered you Derek's assistant manager position. You declined the promotion but kept the money. You didn't want his job, you just wanted him to stop stealing from people who actually worked for their tips. 3 months later, you saw Derek working at a fast food place across town. He spotted you in line, his face went white, and he suddenly needed to take his break. You ordered your food from someone else, left a generous cash tip, and walked out smiling.